Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. I am here today to do a Friday Reads video. I don't know if I'm going to manage to publish this on Friday. It is Friday and I'm filming now, so I don't know if I'll get it uploaded before tomorrow, but that's probably neither here nor there because odds are most of you don't actually watch this on a Friday anyway. So we're already off the wall from there. But anyway, I wanted to jump in and do this. I have not managed to do a whole lot of reading this week, but just want to kind of check in about that and a couple of other things. The first thing I want to mention is that, I don't know if you saw my video from earlier in the week, you're already aware, but just in case you're not, I decided to do a Q&A. And if you have a question for that, please do not leave it on this video. I would rather you leave it on the Q&A video that I posted earlier this week. I will link it in the description box down below. If you have a question, please follow that link, leave a comment there, and so far I had mentioned that I reserve the right to not answer some questions, and I think a lot of people took that to mean that I'm really going to be censoring them. What I meant was that if a question was overly personal, I probably wouldn't answer it, but by and large, I've skimmed through most of the submissions so far, and pretty much everything in there, I think everything in there, but I'm going to say pretty much just to cover myself, is totally answerable. So I'm willing to answer pretty much everything. And a couple of people were wondering if they could ask more than one question. Please ask as many as you'd like. So again, please don't leave your question on this video. I welcome comments on this video, but please, if you have a question, follow the link to the Q&A video, which I'll put in the description box, and put your question over there. I'm going to try to film my Q&A at some point next week. I don't know when. So as I mentioned, I have not gotten a whole lot of reading done this week. Part of that is that actually, I don't know if you can see, I'm wearing my t-shirt for my dog Guinness today. This is a cartoon version of him and it has his name on it. He hasn't been feeling well all week, so I took him to the vet yesterday and it turns out he has walking pneumonia. The vet is not very concerned about it because he's still young and healthy otherwise, so he should be fine. The vet really just wants to make sure we get it knocked out now before it actually becomes more of a problem. The sad thing is he's probably had walking pneumonia all summer long. He's had an intermittent cough all summer where maybe in one night he'll have 2, maybe 3 coughing fits. And my husband and I would say to each other, all right, well, if this continues, if he's still doing this tomorrow, we got to take him to the vet. And then he doesn't do it for about a week. So it was never consistent enough that we took him to the vet. But, that's probably a sign that he had it. None of that is here nor there, except that, that I was actually going to film a video yesterday and didn't get around to it because of that. He is back at the vet today with getting more IV fluids. I'm sure he's going to be fine, but I'm a nervous father, so that's just kind of been on my mind. He did get to come home last night, and he still had the catheter in his arm, so I had to make sure he didn't chew on it. But we got to have lots of snuggles, and I think he seemed a little bit more himself this week, so it's probably just, it's been really hot where I live. Today is the first day that has not been in the 90s, and I think this really hot weather actually brought out the pneumonia more to the point where he was actually showing some symptoms of it. So anyway, that's just one big thing that's been going on this week, and that's been keeping me from getting a whole lot of reading done. I wanted to do a shout out in this video as well. I've been doing shout outs of channels, and I usually, when I do a shout out, try to make sure that it's a channel that has less than 1,000 subscribers as far as I can tell. But this week I'm going to shout out a channel that has more right now, just because I think this person has been super helpful to me in my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge. It's Kazen from the channel Always Doing. I will link her channel down below, and I'll link a specific video as well. Please check it out, and if you enjoy, subscribe to her channel. I enjoy her other videos anyway, but I asked her specifically to help me come up with a romance novel to read. And I've gotten a lot of really good recommendations from people on the videos before, but I know she is a fan so I kind of asked her specifically, and she was so helpful. Romance is an area that I just have a giant blind spot on, and I've always known that romance readers are really voracious and consume a lot of content on a regular basis, but I had no idea how involved and diverse the romance readership out there is. And I got such a good education on that from her, which is part of why I'm doing this Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge. Because, like I said, I want to read genres I don't traditionally read to get a better understanding of them. Like, it's easy to just brush off and say, I'm not a romance reader, I'm not a romance person. But I've learned so much about it, and I have a much deeper level of respect. It's not that I had shade for it before, but I have a much deeper respect because I feel like when I worked at Borders, I was really introduced to romance readership because for a while we would have romance novels, and it was always so difficult for people to figure out, or sometimes it was difficult for people to figure out if they had read a book before, because a lot of romance novelists have been writing for a very long time, and sometimes they will change the titles and change the covers and re-release things. So I was introduced to that as I was a bookseller, because people would come in during the day and they would be trying to figure out, have I read this before? I need to know if it's a reprint. That, sometimes the copyright information in the book would be very tiny print, so they would come and ask us about that. And then Borders eventually started carrying the Harlequin books every month, so we would rotate them out. And let me tell you, I handled putting the new releases out when I worked at Borders. I never got as much heat from anybody if something hadn't made it onto the floor yet when we opened as I did when there were new romance novels, because people, they always knew when they were coming out, they knew what was coming out, and if they didn't see it, they wanted it. And I say that there's no shade there. I think it's great that people are that excited about a book and continuing to read and staying up to date on things. But it was totally new to me then, and I got the sense of that. And then when I worked in publishing, I remember one thing that was a big topic of conversation was that sci-fi out of the gate was one of the most popular ebook genres, because people who tend to read sci-fi are usually early adopters of technology, so they jumped on board the ebook bandwagon early. But then romance quickly caught up to it and surpassed it, because romance readers are, like I said, voracious. They consume so much content quickly, and they, having a device where they don't have to take up physical space with books and can usually get books a little cheaper than a print copy, was just insane. So even when I was in publishing, I had an idea of it. But Kazan talked to me about, she has a video where she does this as well, which is the one I will link one of the videos down below. She has a series where she explains romance terms and types, and it's so diverse. Honestly, it is amazing to me, because she recommended a lot of titles to me, and she kept apologizing about it, but it really just showed me the breadth of content that you can find in romance right now. Characters of different sexualities and genders, authors of different sexualities and genders and races. There are books that talk about polyamory and submissive and dominant relationships, and two of the books she recommended to me featured black characters. One of them was in the Old West, and the other one is disguising herself as a slave. And it's like, that's a thing that exists? I had no idea about any of this. It is such a diverse readership, and the content that goes out is so diverse. And I feel like romance is probably the genre that is the most adept at understanding that there are a lot of different types or subgenres of the category, and I just think that's fascinating. Ultimately, the one that I picked of her recommendations came down to which one is immediately available, and even this is something I had not known. She pointed it out to me, and I had vaguely heard of it, but just was not really aware that none of the books that she recommended were available on Libby or Scribd or anything like that. And it comes down to that romance readers are so voracious that apps like Libby or Scribd will lose money, because people will be consuming so much of those titles that it won't be profitable for them anymore. So they tend to not feature romance books on their platforms, which I had no idea. Again, so one of them was available, and I put it on hold, and that is ultimately what I chose. I think I'm going to start there, and her recommendations were so interesting that I am going to be checking a lot more of them out, or at least that's the plan right now at this moment. So again, I just think it's so good, and it's such a good idea when you want to try a different genre or a writer from a different country. Go to somebody who knows what they're talking about. And thank goodness I went to Kazan. Her channel is Always Doing. I will link one of her videos down below. She had done a series of videos about romance and terminology and types, as I mentioned, and in the one about terminology, I learned plot moppet and other terms like that. It was so interesting to learn all of these things, and but the one I will link down below is actually the one that deals with some of the types of romance, which I found it very engaging. I hope you do as well. So shout out to Kazan and Always Doing for teaching me about romance readership and giving me an entirely new respect for the genre. It's always a good thing to learn something new and have a much deeper understanding of different types of readers and categories, which is the whole idea behind the channel. So she really gave me an excellent foundation to explore romance and maybe find some books that will appeal to me as a reader as well. Now let's get into the reading portion of this Friday Reads video, which is probably what you're here for in the first place. Anyway, I did not get a lot done this week in terms of reading, which I mentioned earlier. Basically, that's just because it's the work week, and that's pretty standard for me. I don't usually have a lot of time to read during the day when I'm working, and then once I'm done with work, we have a family dinner, and I spend time with my husband and my foster son and the dogs. So reading usually happens over the weekend. This was a kind of particularly egregious week for that. I only made progress in my ebook this weekend. I think there was so much going on this week that I did not even get a lot done with that, which is a shame because the ebook I was listening to was The Vanishing Half by Brit, Bennett, and I only made it about halfway through, and it's due back tomorrow on the Libby app, and I don't have a choice. It's going to be returned. So I have gotten myself back on the hold list, and it's going to be about 22 weeks before I get it again, which is a shame. I was looking forward to finishing that book. I just didn't have the time to finish it this week, which I would have needed to do. So that is something I'm going to be circling back to. Since that is going to be going back, I will instead be starting on the BookTube prize books. Carmen Maria Machado's In the Dream House is available as an audiobook on Scribd, so that is going to be my next audiobook. I will not be able to tell you what I think of it until this final round is over and we have the results of the entire BookTube prize for 2020, but that is going to be my next. The only book I managed to make progress on during the week was Blonde by Joyce Carol Oates. This is a buddy read with Brit Bowler that we started over the weekend, and I had gotten 40 pages in over the weekend, and I've been slowly creeping my way up. Our first check-in is this weekend, and we're supposed to be about 100 pages in by then, and I think right now I am about 70, so I have a little more reading on this to do today and probably tomorrow morning, so I can be in shape for my check-in with Britta. And I want to talk to her before I talk to you all about what I'm thinking about this. I also it's a big book, so I want to get a little further in before I really share opinions about that. And then, of course, there was Hamnet, which I had started, by Maggie O'Farrell. That is something I'm reading on NetGalley, and I have been focusing on the buddy read during the week, so I have not made any progress on Hamnet so far. So I am, I think, 60 pages into Hamnet, and I haven't made any progress since Sunday. So I'm looking forward to diving back into that once I am in good shape for my check-in on Blonde. And once I finish, so Blonde is probably going to take up the majority of the month. I'm hoping I can tear through Hamnet, and I have a couple of other books on NetGalley that I want to get to. My plan is, I mentioned the BookTube prize, so I am judging nonfiction, obviously, since Carmen Maria Machado's In the Dream House is a nonfiction title. So that is going to be the first one that I read. I have already read one of the finalists, which is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. If you really want, you can seek out what I said about it at the time I read it, but otherwise I'm not going to talk about it until the round is over. So it's nice to have that one done. I am on the wait list for 2 of the other titles on audio. The final 2 books are only available as an ebook, and I don't really read ebooks, so this is going to be an experience for me. So once I finish Hamnet, I may dive into one of them, because I think at least one of the ebooks is going to be really long, and if I really can't do an ebook anymore, I am going to want to have a contingency plan for that. So that is probably where I'm going to go next. So in terms of reading, that covers what I'm reading now, and I'm going to have to loop back around to The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. I was enjoying it. I think The first half is very much about one of the sisters, so I'm assuming the second half is going to really get to the other sister's point of view, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I don't want to talk too much about the book since I didn't get to that halfway transition point, if there is one, and it's going to be a while before I actually get to revisit it. So that is what I am reading, what I'm going to need to revisit, and kind of what I'm looking at reading next. And that is, I think, about everything for this Friday Reads video, which may or may not actually be posted on a Friday. It is what it is. So anyway, thank you for your time, especially if you've made it to this point in the video. If you follow along, thank you for that. It is wildly appreciated, and I mean that. And if you, like I said, if you have any questions for the Q&A, I will put the video down below. Follow the link to it in the description box, and leave your question there. You can ask pretty much anything. Like I said, nothing that has been asked is out of bounds, or it's something I don't feel comfortable answering. You can ask more than one question, and I'm going to see how it goes. I think I can safely cover everything that's been asked in one video. If I can't, I'll just divide it into 2 videos, and I'll film it at some point next week. So stay tuned for that. And again, if you have a question, follow the link to the quick Q&A video in the description box down below. Leave your question there. It's as simple as that. And anyway, thank you for your time. Always appreciated. And I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.